It begins with a respectful title for the Bodhisattva, starting an enlightenment. Understanding the mind and seeing one's true nature. It's called the beginning. It's all about the sincerity of the Bodhisattva. Now, let me explain this to everyone here. One cannot become a great master. The word master as in teacher. This great master cannot be spoken of. If you want to call someone a great master, it is a term of praise for the Buddha. One cannot become a bodhisattva. If today we become a Dharma teacher and people call us a great master, in other words, does that mean your status is below Manjushri and Samantabhadra? Guan Yin refers to Manjushri Bodhisattva who would have to bow to you 3 times, which is quite significant. Can you really take on that role? You can't. Remember, this is not respect. It's actually an insult. Do you understand? If someone sees you on the street and bows to you, saying, "Oh, Mr. President," if you're not the president, calling you Mr. President is actually an insult, right? So this title shouldn't be overused, nor should it be understated. So, generally speaking, it's not appropriate to casually call someone a great master. As for Master Yingguang, people respectfully called him that, but you should consider how he was during his lifetime. In the early years, there were printed collections of Master Yingguang's writings. Look at those old editions from the early years. The writings of Master Yingguang. Look throughout China's history. Elders and virtuous were not called masters. Emperors' teachers received titles. In China, you might be called a patriarch, not a great master. Tripitaka experts, scripture translating monks, were called Tripitaka masters. Didn't become figured. We must correct this title. It is not acceptable. Hey, when people see me being called Master Jinkong, they scold. We must clearly explain to them why they don't understand. We need to make it clear. It cannot be copied like this. This title is incorrect. Master is only a title for the Buddha. However, there is a very special case where one person can be called a master. The Patriarch of the Pure Land School. This is very special, and it is recognized within our Buddhist community. Why is that? The Patriarch of the Pure Land School, the teachings they pass on, are no different from Buddha's. Encouraging reliance on Amitabha Buddha, reciting his name ensures rebirth in Pure Land. This is no different from the methods all Buddhas and Tathagatas use to guide sentient beings. Only the Patriarch of the Pure Land School can achieve this, the great master. But the Patriarch of the Pure Land School was not someone who learned during their lifetime. That doesn't count. It must be that the elder has already passed away. Later, it was universally recognized and acknowledged within our Buddhist community that this person made a significant contribution to the study and promotion of the Pure Land teachings in their generation, thus becoming the Patriarch of the Pure Land School. Master Yingguang was alive. No one called him the Patriarch of the Pure Land School. After he passed away, only then did our Buddhist community respectfully call him the 13th Patriarch of the Pure Land School. Only after death, not while alive. If someone is called that while alive, it would be considered misleading and unacceptable. After passing away, it is judged fairly by the people of the world. The staple food of the Jinzhong is different from other ethnic groups. Other ethnic groups pass down their staple foods from generation to generation. One generation passes it to the next, but in the case of the Pure Land School, it is chosen through a democratic election by everyone. So it's different. It's obvious. It's not passed down from generation to generation. Other schools pass down their teachings through generations, but the Pure Land School's masters are elected. It must be recognized by everyone. So this is a bit of common knowledge. We need to understand this when it comes to testimonies. Everyone, you need to know. Next, this Bodhisattva of the animal realm. They are all lay practitioners. Lay bodhisattvas, they are all lay practitioners. Their titles are the essence of the original perfection. The first one, the so-called bodhisattva of good contemplation. Lower contemplation. Focus on the higher. Good at countering hostility, the meaning is very deep, very deep. Speaking of profound meanings, it's very difficult for us to understand, and we can't manage to achieve it. We must lower this standard. Lower it to a level where it can be applied in our lives. How do we enter? So today in this session of the Infinite Life Sutra, we focus on understanding, focus on practice, how to apply it in our lives. How to apply it in our work, dealings, and interactions with others over time. We should start by doing it. Apply it to what we can achieve. Good thinking, authority. That is, knowing, gratitude, and repaying kindness. This is something we can achieve. Constantly remember. Grace. Constantly remember the resentment of sentient beings. Constantly remember the wealthy. Constantly remember the warmth of the nation. We reflect on it daily. Report back 4 times the original cost. If a person can often remember gratitude, their virtue will grow deeper and deeper. We often talk about urgently achieving merit and accumulating virtue. This is a virtue. Knowing gratitude and repaying kindness. This is not as simple as it sounds. In the great Prajnaparamita Sutra, the Buddha taught the second ground bodhisattvas. The second ground bodhisattvas study 8 subjects. Knowing the root and repaying kindness is them. This indicates knowing gratitude is rare. The wisdom of the second ground bodhisattvas is quite high. Only then do they truly know gratitude. So ordinary people do not know gratitude. I don't know the grace of my parents raising me. I don't know how grateful I am for the teachers' teachings. They do not know national protection. This needs to be understood. If there were no international support now, it would be so pitiful. Being a wanderer all over the world, without any holidays, it's very pitiful. The country protects you. The country is strong. When you get a passport, wherever you go, people respect you. When you don't have any achievements, no one respects you. So, you need to realize from this that the country needs to protect us with its grace. All sentient beings provide us with the merit of mutual assistance. The clothes we wear isn't woven. Cotton isn't planted by us. Every day we eat, rice isn't grown by us. You always know how many people there are in society working hard to support my daily life. How do I repay them? So the first thing we need to truly understand is basic. Especially the 3 million, among which truly reside in Sichuan. Completely and perfectly. This meaning can't be explained. Explaining it fully takes an hour. Fortunately, after listening for a while, you'll gradually come to realize. Secondly, you must contemplate the suffering of all beings. By contemplating the suffering of all beings, our own great compassion can arise. When you see these suffering beings, if we want to help these suffering beings, we must seriously and diligently pursue our studies and practice. If we cannot achieve our own virtue, knowledge, and abilities, how can you help them? So I hope everyone can see the suffering beings all over the world. For these suffering beings, we must work hard and diligently. We must be earnest and make a concerted effort. I hope we can achieve this as soon as possible. The sooner we achieve it, the sooner their suffering will be alleviated. If we achieve it later, they will endure one more day of suffering. You must always have this mindset, and those with this mindset will definitely not slack off. This is truly the heart of a bodhisattva. It is truly great compassion. Now in this world, people have already become aware of the suffering of sentient beings. It is enticing, but there is no way to solve it. The year before last, I think it was during the second session. The students from the second session know. It was also during our class period. I took a 3-day leave. It was quite unexpected. What was it for? It was the Australian Department of Indigenous Affairs, a government agency. The director invited me to give a lecture. I agreed to it. I went on the first day, gave the lecture on the second day, and returned on the third day. What was the nature of this lecture? The director was a Jewish Australian. When I met him in Australia, he talked to me about an issue. Smoking in Australia has already adopted an open policy. Which means welcoming people from other places to come with a democratic approach. So these people who come, they have different cultural backgrounds from the locals in Australia, different lifestyles, different races, different religious beliefs, and now suddenly they are living together. How can social stability and prosperity be achieved? How can various prejudices and barriers be eliminated to mutually contribute to the prosperity of Australian society? They thought about this issue, so they organised a forum. They hold a meeting every month. The participants are all religious leaders. When I attended that day, there were a total of 14 different religious leaders gathered together. The director invited me to speak. It was specifically about this issue. I took the opportunity to refer to these 14 religious leaders as bodhisattvas. They found it quite strange, like the Christian pastors, Pastor Bodhisattva, the Catholic priests as bodhisattvas, and the Islamic imams as bodhisattvas. For Judaism, I called them elder bodhisattvas. They are all bodhisattvas, and found it strange. Then I explained to them that a bodhisattva means an enlightened person, someone with wisdom and awareness. Do you acknowledge your wisdom and awareness? Yes, then you are a bodhisattva, a true bodhisattva, not a fake one. So they were pleased with me. Ah, yes, I had no resistance at all. We introduced Buddhism to them, explaining that Buddhism is not a religion. We explained that Buddhism is an academic study and it is education. People of any religion should learn Buddhism. Why? Because you need to learn the wisdom teachings. If you have wisdom and awareness, then you are called a bodhisattva. So Buddhism is definitely not about value. If you betray that religion to come and learn Buddhism, Buddhism absolutely does not agree with that. At that time, it went against the morals of society. Buddha would not accept the student. If you are a religious person who loves your religion and respects your God, Buddha approves of this love. You are a good child of God, a good student of Buddha. You can take refuge in the three jewels while believing in a religion. Be a student of Buddha. You have a father-son relationship with God and a teacher-student relationship with Shakyamuni Buddha. Where is the conflict in that? There is no conflict. It's very harmonious. After I finished speaking, everyone was very happy. They asked me many questions, including a kind and amiable elder from the Jewish community, who asked me this question. He said, in the Bible, it says that all of humanity's sins will ultimately face judgment, the final judgment. Does Buddhism have a concept of the final judgment and who presides over it? When I heard this question, I said Buddhism is about education, not judgment. It's like a school. It's about teaching, and exams are part of it. Judgment is the business of judges and the judicial department, while Buddhism is like the education department, not the judicial department. So who presides over this judgment? God does. He was quite pleased to hear that, as God handles the judgment, while we focus on teaching and encouraging goodness. It was harmonious. I had great respect for him, and he had great respect for me as well. At that time, they invited me to become a permanent member of their association. If I couldn't go to Australia, it was fine. I just needed to send them an article every month. In fact, I didn't have to write much myself. I asked my students in Australia to translate an article into English each time and send it over. Life and Death in June. So this time, because the school term started, you treated me, and I also treated. I went to Australia and stayed for a longer period, 26 days. I visited Bond University on the Gold Coast. The person who hosted me was the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the university. I heard from others that this Dean, isn't very old. I heard that he is quite impatient with the administrative staff. There is no metabolism, but when he met me that day, he was very friendly, and his attitude was completely different. Many of them found it strange when they saw him. So when he met with me, he saw the teachings of Buddhism and was very fond of the concept of fate and connections, so he asked me some questions. Currently, in Australia and at the university, there are over 2,000 students. They come from more than 30 countries. So, it's like a small mixed community. This has led to a social issue within the Faculty of Social Sciences. So, he brought this up with me. How can people from different countries, different races, different lifestyles, and different religious beliefs come together and live harmoniously? He also raised the issue of how they can cooperate. In Australia, there are many people in academia and politics who share this idea. This is a very positive phenomenon. When he brought up this issue with me, I told him that Mahayana Buddhism can solve this problem. He was pleased to hear that, wasn't he? Especially with the Avatamsika Sutra.
It contains comprehensive theories.
It offers detailed methods and even includes demonstrations.
That demonstration is truly about Siddhartha's 53 visits, where you see the manifestations of 53 Buddhas as men, women, young and old, from all walks of life, each with different backgrounds and religious beliefs.
Like the transformation of saints and Brahmins into different religious beliefs. Different cultural backgrounds, different lifestyles. How do they exist in this society? Coexist and prosper together. Mutual assistance. Isn't that exactly what you are now? Hoping to solve the problem. He was very pleased after hearing this and immediately expressed to me the idea of whether it could be possible at his school to establish a Buddhist Studies Institute. He brought this up to me voluntarily. If it's not possible to establish this institute, could it be possible to offer Buddhist studies courses at his school? So he suggested this idea, and I asked him, I said, for the students at your school now, when a student studies here, the tuition and miscellaneous fees, the food and accommodation, all students, live on campus. How much does it cost for a student per year? He told me it's about 30,000 Australian dollars a year. Well, I also thought it's quite a prestigious school, and people say this school is like a noble school. So if you have money, there's no problem getting into study. The quality of the teachers is very good. The teaching standards are also quite high. So I thought about it. If we could introduce Buddhism into this school, in the future, it could become the most important course in the school. Our Buddhist teachings could become a central course in universities around the world. Talented people in the world, truly blessed. Buddhism is the path of wisdom. Buddhist studies are the study of wisdom. It can truly solve all problems. It can make all beings, everyone, happy. Every family harmonious. Careers smooth and successful. Society peaceful, wonderful. The nation prosperous and strong. The world at peace. The Avatamsika Sutra can indeed achieve this. Unfortunately, no one is promoting it. So now we have this opportunity. One, hope you young monks will work hard. Once you have learned well, you will all become university professors in the future. Don't be afraid. I don't even have a degree. No, I haven't even graduated from high school. How could I become a university professor? You should know, I graduated from junior high school. And now there are actually people inviting me to be the director of a research institute. You need to have real substance. When we give a lecture at the school's principal, leadership, the school's senior leaders, their professors, they all come to listen. After listening, they are delighted. They admire. They all acknowledge it. So what problem is there in teaching students? The problem is truly following the study and practice of Buddhism. Eliminate afflictions, open wisdom. Only wisdom can truly convince people. You make people convinced both in heart and speech. You don't need a diploma. Diplomas are fake, they don't have much use. Have confidence in yourself. Work diligently and make sure to cut off worldly fame and gain, the 5 desires, and 6 senses. Write it down clearly and neatly. Constantly think of the suffering of all beings. Constantly reflect on your own deep karmic obstacles. To eliminate karmic obstacles, cut off afflictions, and help all suffering beings. Think like a bodhisattva. You are indeed a bodhisattva of good contemplation. Time is up for today.